INEC banned negligent employees from March 11 elections. NAS members elect to get INEC certificates of return Tuesday, Wednesday. Plus, United Nations states agree historic deal to protect high seas. Hello, this is News Live on Viewer Television. I am Deborah Dukaife. The Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project has urged the President Muhammadu Buhari to disclose details of the measures his government is taking to immediately and effectively obey the Supreme Court decision extending the validity of the old 200 naira, 500 naira and 1000 naira notes and directing Central Bank of Nigeria to continue to receive the notes from Nigerians. In the letter signed by SERAP Deputy Director Kolawale Oluwadare, the organization said there was an overriding public interest in disclosing the details of the measures the government and the CBN were taking to effectively and satisfactorily obey the Supreme Court's decision. According to SERAP, disclosing the measures that the federal government and the CBN were taking to implement the Supreme Court's decision would also enable Nigerians to monitor and scrutinize the level of compliance with the decision. SERAP further said widely publishing the implementation measures would also improve accountability of state officials and public confidence in the rule of law and Nigeria's democracy. The Independent National Electoral Commission has banned all its employees found to be negligent during the February 25th general elections from engaging in the March 11 governorship and State House of Assembly elections. The chairman of the electoral body, Professor Mahmood Yakubu, on Saturday disclosed this in a meeting with the Commission's resident electoral commissioners. Yakubu further revealed that the bimodal voter accreditation system would once again be deployed for voter accreditation and result management. He, however, commended the efforts of Nigerians and the level of maturity shown by political leaders all through the election period. INEC says it will commence presentation of certificates of return to elected members of the National Assembly on Tuesday. Its chairman, Professor Mahmood Yakubu, disclosed this at a meeting of the Commission with resident electoral commissioners Rex in Abuja. Yakubu said that the senators-elect would be presented their certificates on Tuesday, while members of the House of Representatives-elect would receive theirs on Wednesday. He said that in the February 25th elections, winners had also been declared for 423 national legislative seats, while supplementary elections would also be held in 46 constituencies. Yakubu said that in the Senate, 98 out of 109 seats had been declared, adding that so far 7 political parties won senatorial seats, while in the House of Representatives, 325 out of 360 seats were won by 8 political parties. The now National Assembly candidate of the People's Democratic Party (PDP) representing Das Tafawa Balewa Bogoro Federal Constituency, Barrister Kefas Magaji, has expressed dissatisfaction with the results of the just concluded election as declared by INEC, alleging that it was maneuvered in favor of the All Progressive Congress (APC). Barrister Kefas, who states this while addressing journalists in his house, said he therefore rejected the results and will do what it takes within the law provision to reclaim his victory. About your state correspondent, Awa Hassan completes the story.
Barely few days after the announcement of the Presidential and National Assembly result, candidate of the People's Democratic Party (PDP) representing the Tafawa Balewa Bogoro Federal Constituency, Barrister Kefas Magaji, has rejected the outcome of what INEC has declared free and fair election.
Election was conducted on Saturday. Immediately at the close of polls, counting started, and by late evening, results started turning in. Surprisingly, however, Bununu ward, which is the host of the 3 local governments, their election results was delayed. By the next morning, which was Sunday, results were turned in from Bununu, from Das. Results were turned in from Bogoro. Results were turned in from the other 10 electoral wards. of the local government. But Bununu's ward, the result was not turned in until at about 6-7 p.m. on Sunday, which was very unusual.
Even though residents of Bauchi celebrate one of the most peaceful conduct in the state during the election, allegations like this continue to threaten democracy in Nigeria.
From reports, they collated the results about 5 times. And surprisingly, the collation officer now for 5 times took the results to the collation center for the local government, and which is also the collation center for the 3 local governments. But the results were returned on grounds that the computations were not properly done. There were so many errors, and for the first time, instead of allowing the presiding officers, who are the masters of the election results in their respective polling units, to compute these results, the electoral officer for Tafawa Balewa took over the whole exercise. And at the end of the day, they built up the results that was not in consonance with the votes cast in that ward.
Barrister Kefas Magaji rejects the victory of APC candidate Jafar Gambo as announced by INEC.
And for me, we're taking up this matter before the election tribunal to make sure we pursue this case through the legitimate means and make sure we reclaim our mandate.
He, however, calls on the people of his constituency not to be discouraged by the result, but to come out in mass during the forthcoming governorship and state assembly election to vote for PDP. Awal Hassan, Viewer TV News, Bauchi.
The Independent National Electoral Commission INEC management team has been called into question by the Bauchi State Chapter of the All Progressive Congress APC regarding the conduct of the 2023 presidential and National Assembly elections held in the state last Saturday. The APC claims that the PDP government compromised security and INEC ad hoc electoral commissioners or if officers in the majority of polling places throughout the state. However, the All Progressive Congress demanded that the Independent National Electoral Commission Chairman INEC immediately transfer the state's Administrative Secretary and Resident Electoral Commissioner REC during a press conference held at a party secretariat in Bauchi. Awal Hassan from Bauchi State tells us more.
The All Progressive Congress APC expressed its lack of confidence in INEC during a press conference with journalists held at the party secretariats regarding the conduct of the 2023 presidential and National Assembly elections. This, according to the party, is because some INEC officials have been used as tools to manipulate the election.
We have witnessed in some local government areas of Bauchi State where the INEC trained ad hoc staff were replaced with certain card-carrying members of the ruling party in Bauchi State, the PDP, who apparently manipulated the election process in favor of their party. Thus, they have, in some polling units, illegally cancelled the elections in APC-controlled areas.
In order to promote transparency and protect the integrity of electoral processes, the APC chairman, who was represented by the party's legal counsel, urged INEC to redistribute some of its officials in the state.
Having lost confidence in the management team of INEC in Bauchi State, we unconditionally demand for immediate redeployment of the Resident Electoral Commissioner for Bauchi State and the Administrative Secretary of the Commission to ensure transparency and safeguard the sanctity of the electoral process.
Nonetheless, the party says it rejects efforts by the state's PDP-led administration to undermine security and INEC's ad hoc electoral officers in the majority of polling units throughout the state.
We have seen instances where the PDP government in Bauchi State used its machineries and traditional rulers to threaten the beneficiaries of conditional cash transfer programs by seizing their beneficiary cards until they vote for PDP candidates against their wishes. Otherwise, they risk losing their status as beneficiaries.
APC further requested that INEC take steps to guarantee that all of its ad hoc staff receive enough training prior to the next election on March 11, 2023, in order to prevent reoccurrence of unwarranted and intentional violations. Awal Hassan, Viewer TV News, Bauchi.
Troops of Sector 4 of Operation Royal Punch and Special Forces of the 167 Battalion of the Nigerian Army have cleared the bandits' hideout in a fierce encounter in Kaduna State. When News Live returns, details of this and more comes to you after the break. Just stay tuned. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is News Live, a recap of our top stories. INEC banned negligent employees from March 11th elections. NAS members elect to get INEC certificate of return Tuesday, Wednesday. Plus, United States agree historic deal to protect high seas. Troops of Sector 4 of Operation Well Punch and Special Forces of the 167 Battalion of the Nigerian Army have cleared a bandits' hideout in a fierce encounter in Kaduna State. The State Commissioner for Internal Security and Home Affairs, Samuel Aran, confirmed the development in a statement. Aran said the troops who embarked on a long-range fighting patrol to Tukura General Area in the Chikun local government area of the state engaged and overpowered the criminals, neutralized one, while others fled. Aaron added that the troops destroyed several camps in the course of the battle. The commissioner further stated that Governor Nasir El-Rufai was elated at the troops' successes and commended the leadership of Major General Taurid Lagbaja, General Officer commanding 1 Division, and the Force Commander of Operation Well Punch. The National Drug Law Enforcement Agency has held talks with Pakistani counterparts in the Division of Controlled Drugs Regulatory Authority of Pakistan to explore ways of collaboration to restrict channels of trafficking illicit substances between Nigeria and Pakistan. The agency's Chief Executive Officer, Brigadier General Buba Mara, had approved the trip of a delegation comprising directors of the Commission to a meeting in Vienna, Austria in February to discuss modalities on how both countries end drug trafficking. This was disclosed in a statement by the NDLEA's Director of Media and Publicity, Femi Babafemi. According to Babafemi, the strategic meeting, which brought officials from the 2 countries together to discuss their responsibilities, was held under the supervision of the International Narcotics Control Board, which is focused on improved communication and exchange of real-time intelligence using modern communication tools. The United States Ambassador to Nigeria, Mary Leonard, has said that the presidential polls of the February 25th failed to meet the expectations of Nigerians. The ambassador acknowledged that many are angry and frustrated with the result, while some others are celebrating victories they believe were hard-fought and well-earned. She, however, commended Nigerians for demonstrating their dedication to democracy. Leonard therefore urged the Independent National Electoral Commission to promptly address the challenges that can be resolved ahead of the March 11 gubernatorial elections and to undertake a broader review of the problems that transpired during the last elections and what can be done to fix them. In addition, she urged INEC to share with the Nigerian public information about actions it's taking. The Labour Party said it had engaged the services of at least 20 senior advocates of Nigeria to challenge the outcome of the February 25th presidential election on behalf of its presidential candidate Peter Obi. According to sources within the party, the lawyers drawn from different chambers were being furnished with materials that would be used as evidence in court. The president-elect and candidate of the All Progressive Congress, Bola Tinubu, was announced the winner of the keenly contested election last Wednesday. But Atiku and Obi rejected the results announced by the Independent National Electoral Commission, with each claiming at separate press conferences that the election was fraught with violence and massive rigging. The drama took a twist last Friday when the 2 major opposition candidates were reported to have approached the court to seek permission for the inspection of election materials used during the poll. A total of 1,670 Nigerian trained nurses were licensed to practice in the United Kingdom within 6 months, Newsman reports. This is according to the latest report on the number of professionals on the NMC register from April 1st to September 2022 obtained from the Nursing and Midwifery Council. The NMC is the regulator for nursing and midwifery professions in the United Kingdom, and it maintains a register of all nurses, midwives and specialist community public health nurses and nursing associates eligible to practice within the United Kingdom. There is also a major drain in Nigeria among the health workers, largely driven by poor remuneration, poor working conditions, heavy workload and insecurity. You're still watching News Live on Viewer Television. Business and international news comes to you right after the break. Just stay tuned.
Fragrance, the new luxury fragrance for men and women.
And on business, there is an air of uncertainty among deposit money banks as they wait for the instruction from the Central Bank of Nigeria over the recirculation of old 500 naira and 1000 naira. The Supreme Court on Friday ordered that the old naira notes should be allowed to circulate along with the new notes until December 31st, 2023. Meanwhile, deposit money banks have yet to communicate with their customers if the old 500 naira and 1000 naira would be released into the economy, or the banks would only continue to release the new naira notes based on availability. Similarly, millions of Nigerians who have been hit by severe cash crunch have expressed hope that cash will be available in the banks from Monday. They noted that following the Apex Court ruling, the CBN should expedite actions in making cash, both old notes and new notes, available immediately. The International Monetary Fund has urged the Central Bank of Nigeria and other monetary authorities to de-emphasize monetary policy as a way of tackling the resurgence of inflation. In a new report titled Rethinking Monetary Policy in a Changing World, the Washington-based lender said the ability of central banks to set monetary policy and control the economy in more fraught times hinges on its independence. According to the report, low interest rates and less extreme public debt levels that prevailed after the global crisis of 2008 permitted central banks to ignore what were then relatively inconsequential interactions between monetary and fiscal policy. It noted that the central bank's position may come into conflict with the government's desire. The IMF, however, said central banks could retain independence only if they promise not to accede to any government desires to monetize excessive debt, which then would force authorities to cut spending on increased taxes or both so-called fiscal consolidation. The national power grid will collapse if electricity generation hits 6,000 megawatts. The president of Nigeria Consumer Protection Network, Kunle Olubiyo, said Nigeria's highest quantum of electricity ever generated on its national grid was 5,802 megawatts, which was generated on March 1st, 2021 and was evacuated at a frequency of 50.09 Hz. The transmission company of Nigeria had stated at the time that its quantum of electricity was transmitted to power distributors, adding the figure was higher than the previous peak by 186.20 megawatts. Since then, power generation on the grid had continued to fluctuate between 4,000 megawatts and 5,000 megawatts, despite increasing demand for electricity by the over 200 million people in Nigeria. But amid calls for an increase in power generation, the NCPN president explained that the regulatory inconsistencies coupled with the weak infrastructure in the sector were shrinking the electricity carrying the capacity of the national grid. The World Bank has disbursed at least $12 billion, almost half of which was to Africa, to help beneficiary countries cope with food shortage. In a new report titled Food Security Update, World Bank Response to Rising Food Insecurity, the bank noted that domestic food prices remained high all over the world, especially in low and middle income countries. According to the report, following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, trade-related policies imposed by countries have surged, and the global food crisis has been partially made worse by the growing number of food trade restrictions put in place by countries with a goal of increasing domestic supply and reducing prices. The bank also said $30 billion relief package spread over a period of 15 months, including $12 billion in new projects, will be rolled out to help countries cope with food insecurity.
Good morning, gentlemen.
How are you?
I'm at the Envoy Hotel, Diplomatic Drive 305, here for a business weekend. It's been an amazing stay. Conference hall and business facilities here are stylish and innovative. The Envoy Hotel is luxury, esoteric, opulence, for ultimate comfort.
Discerning travelers, we are more than just a place to stay. We are an icon of comfort, style, and thoughtful luxury. We are Envoy Hotel.
And on international, hundreds of Tunisians rallied Sunday in defiance of a protest ban demanding the release of more than 20 prominent figures opposed to the president who were arrested in recent weeks. President Kais Saied sacked the government and forced parliament in a 2021 grab power and imposed sweeping changes to the political system of the sole democracy to have emerged from the Arab Spring uprisings. More than 20 political figures have been arrested in the North African country in recent weeks, including members of the main opposition coalition, the National Salvation Front, and its main component, the Islamist-leaning Ennahda Party. Denouncing Said's power grab as a coup, the protesters defied a ban on demonstrations imposed by Tunis authorities. According to reports gathered, dozens gathered by key bus and tramway station in central Tunis before charging police barricades to then march towards Habib Bourguiba Avenue, where the crowd soon swelled to more than 500. And almost 300 people returned from Tunisia to Mali and Ivory Coast on Saturday after boarding repatriation flights, fearful of a wave of violence since the president launched a tirade against migrants. Last month, President Kais Saied ordered officials to take urgent measures to tackle irregular migration, claiming without evidence that a criminal plot was underway to change Tunisia's demographic makeup. Saied claimed that migrants were behind most crime in the North African country, fueling a spate of sackings, evictions, and attacks.
Déjà, je suis assez content parce que je me dis que je vais voir ma famille, ça c'est de 1. De 2, je suis en sécurité. Personnellement, je ne sortais plus. Je restais cloîtré dans ma maison, je ne partais pas à l'école, j'étais enfermé, carrément chez moi.
The African Union has expressed deep shock and concern at his remarks while government in sub-Saharan Africa scrambled to bring home hundreds of frightened nationals who flocked to their embassies for help. United Nations member states have finally agreed to a text on the first international treaty to protect the high seas, a fragile and vital treasure that covers nearly half of the planet. After years of negotiations, negotiators from more than 100 countries completed the United Nations Treaty, a long-awaited step that environmental groups say will help reverse marine biodiversity losses and ensure sustainable development. The legally binding pact to conserve and ensure the sustainable use of ocean biodiversity under discussion for 15 years was finally agreed after 5 rounds of protracted United Nations-led negotiations. The treaty is seen as a crucial component in global efforts to bring 30% of the world's land and sea under protection by the end of the decade, a target known as 30 by 30 agreed in Montreal, Canada in December last year.
Ladies and gentlemen, the ship has reached the shore.
Economic interests were a major sticking point throughout the latest round of negotiations, which began on February 20th, with developing countries calling for a greater share of the spoils from the blue economy, including the transfer of technology. Now, 3 people have been arrested over the murder of a Philippine provincial governor, and 8 others, authorities said Sunday, adding another suspect was killed in a shootout. 17 people were also wounded in the audacious attack on Saturday in the sugarcane growing heartland of the Philippines. At least 6 gunmen armed with rifles and wearing military-style uniform opened fire in the governor's home in Pamplona municipality in the central province of Negros Oriental. The victim, Governor Raul Degamo, became the latest victim of a recent rash of assaults on local Philippine politicians. 2 of the 3 suspects arrested were former soldiers who were dishonorably discharged several years ago, the Philippine Army said in a statement. And a 4th suspect was killed in a shootout in a plantation on Saturday night, police spokesman Lieutenant Colonel Gerard Pelari told journalists. And that's all in News Live, but before we go, a recap of the headlines. INEC bans negligent employees from March 11th elections. Mass members elect to get INEC certificates of return Wednesday and Tuesday. Plus, United States agree historical deal to protect high seas. Many thanks for watching. I am Deborah Ndukaife. Please stay tuned and enjoy the rest of our programs.